Stargate unlocks a new era of cross-chain DeFi apps and pushes the ceiling on the deployments of new ideas and protocols that are not specific to a single ecosystem. This is an overview of the first protocol built on layer 0 called Stargate. I'll go over how the protocol functions, what problem it solves, its future potential, and also some risks that come with the protocol. Hello everyone, welcome to One Life Investments, where I break down complex crypto topics and create helpful guides and content that anyone can understand. Before jumping into the video, a quick disclaimer that none of the content on this channel is any financial advice, including this video. The videos are only for educational or entertainment purposes, and you should always do your own research before investing or using any protocols or services. If you're not familiar with Layer 0 and how that works, please watch the video after this, and the video will be in the top right corner or the description, and learn more about how they are achieving this omni-chain future. For anyone on a time crunch, please use the chapters to skip forward to a section you are most interested in. Alright, so let's dive in. First, let's start with the definition from the website itself. They say Stargate is a community-driven organization that's building the first fully composable native asset bridge and the first dApp built on Layer 0. There's quite a lot to unpack there. So basically, Stargate's vision is to make cross-chain liquidity transfer a seamless single transaction process. I'll get into the technicals just after we go through the platform. And if you are looking to learn more about the technicals and would like to know more about the consensus and all that stuff, the documents or the links to all the documents and articles will be in the description. And as always, as you know, that I try to keep it as less technical as I can so that everyone can understand. I'll definitely miss out on a lot of things that are in the documents. All right, so make sure that if you want to learn more, go through the documents. So if you look at Stargate Finance website, Stargate is considered a cross-chain liquidity transfer protocol. What does Stargate Finance do? It helps you to transfer liquidity or carry out transactions throughout different blockchains by staying on one spot. So for example, what happens is if you go to transfer, since it's a liquidity transfer protocol, that's how they're defining at the moment, you can transfer different assets from a different blockchain. For example, I can transfer USDC from Ethereum directly to BNB or any of these networks in one transaction. I got to pay transaction fee once and then it will be transferred. For example, if I transfer, let's say 20 USDC, the fee is 0.01 and I got to approve it and I got to send it, right? So that's basically the protocol at the moment. You can transfer any asset from one network to another network directly and you get native assets as well. And if you're wondering how this is different from Bridge, I'll explain that in just a second. The main thing is you're getting native asset and not a wrapped asset like you get on a Bridge, but more on that later. So the basic understanding is Stargate is a liquidity transfer layer or a liquidity transfer protocol, or technically a bridge that allows you to transfer assets directly to different blockchains from one click, and you pay the gas fee or the transaction fees once, right? And you also have a pool, so you can stake your asset or you can provide liquidity. And since there is a fee on all the transactions or each and every transfer of liquidity, you can provide liquidity for different assets and you can earn fees as a part of you providing those liquidity. And on top of that, you can use that liquidity pool tokens and go to farming, and you can farm your liquidity pool tokens to earn Stargate as well. And eventually in the future, the Stargate users will be able to stake their STG tokens and get VESTG, which allows them to vote on the future of the protocol. All right, so that's basically what the Stargate Finance is. If someone else wants to incorporate Stargate, they can do that as well. That's my understanding. So if Uniswap wants to enable cross-chain transfer or cross-chain swap, they can incorporate Stargate and their algorithm to do so. All right, so how does Stargate function, or how does Stargate actually achieve this? So before I can explain how Stargate makes it possible or why Stargate is first of its kind, let me explain a little bit about bridges. I went over this topic in the other explanation video for Layer 0 as well, but since this is very closely connected to these two protocols, or Stargate is actually built on Layer 0 and actually resembles a lot of Layer 0 core concepts, I'll just use the same photo. So at the moment, there are a lot of different bridges that we have: wormhole, synapses, and there's a bunch of different bridges specific to different blockchains. Okay, and at the moment, if I want to move fund from, let's say, Ethereum to Solana, the only option I have is to use a bridge. And now what's the problem is the way the bridges function. how the bridge functions, there's two main ways how a bridge functions. So when I use a bridge and I try to transfer an asset called X that's on Ethereum to Solana, what happens is once I initiate the transfer from the bridge, the first scenario is either the asset gets locked on the bridge confirms that the asset is locked, and then it will unlock a wrapped asset on the other end. Okay. The second way is the assets are sent to the bridge burns those assets and actually mints a wrapped version of the same asset and gives you that asset on the other end. So if I send X at the moment using a bridge, I'm getting a wrapped or WX on the other end. The risk here is the point of failure is the bridge. And we've seen multiple times that the bridge can be exploited, and there's a lot of hackers that have been able to withdraw millions from the bridge by attacking the bridge. So what does attacking the bridge means is because you're dealing with two different assets here. One is a wrapped asset and one is a native asset. So even though it's a wrapped asset, it's basically a different kind of asset on the other end. So what happens is the exploiters, they can confuse the bridge in thinking that they've actually locked or burned the asset on one end. And since the bridge thinks that you've actually burned your asset on one end, it will give you the asset on the other end thinking that you've actually done it. And there's a lot of other ways to confuse a bridge. So basically the point of failure is the bridge, and the risk that your assets might not reach the other end, the assets might get locked up in the bridge, is very high. So if the bridge fails while you're transferring a huge amount of money, then the chances of you not getting your asset on the other end are very high. So if it's a small amount, it doesn't really matter. To understand more on that and what the issues are, you should read about the bridging trilemma. I'll leave the link to this article in the description as well, or the Medium link. This is from Ryan, and he's actually co-founder and CTO at Layer Zero Labs, and he actually goes into detail on what the trilemma is and how Stargate actually solves this issue. I'm going to go a little bit into this as well, but since it's very technical, I'll try to keep it very short and easy to understand. All right, so this is basically a simplified version of how Stargate Finance works. So if I want to send an asset or sell an asset called X that is on Ethereum at the moment, I want to transfer that to Solana ecosystem or the Solana blockchain, I can use Stargate, and in one transaction, if I send or if I sell whatever, then it sends the information to Stargate, and Stargate handles that, and then you'll give me, or you will carry out transaction on the other end. Now, there's few things you need to understand. Is the first is the concept of finality, right? So if you remember here in the bridge, we talked about how the bridge might be exploited. Sometimes if you send your fund and if the bridge is not in a perfect condition, then your assets might be locked, or worst case scenario, your asset might be lost in that case, right? So finality means that if I send a transaction through from one end, then it's guaranteed that I'm going to get the end result of the transaction. Meaning, at the moment, I'm trying to transfer asset called X using Stargate Finance. If I initiate a transaction saying sell X on Solana, then I send the transaction through to Stargate Finance. It is guaranteed that that transaction will go through and I'll get that end result on my end, because the Stargate Finance uses something called relayer oracles, and they've got other algorithms as well that make sure that without the user actually sending that asset to Stargate Finance, it won't execute the second transaction or the final transaction that has to go through. And it does that by using Oracle, which is your chain link usually, or you can use, and depending on what the developer's requirements are, they can use Chainlink, you can use or any Oracle services, for example, Band protocol as well. And once the Oracle confirms that that transaction or transaction that you initiated is valid and is true, then that Oracle confirms with Stargate Finance, and then that transaction is completed. Now, the point of failure is definitely the Oracle or the relayers that the Stargate Finance is using. I'm not sure how risky this is or how safe this is, but we should definitely see as time moves on and people deploy more apps on it, it will definitely expose more risks or more opportunities as well as time goes on. So the concept of finality is there, and this concept of native asset as well. So Stargate Finance has developed a Delta bridge and also a algorithm called the Delta algorithm. So Delta bridge enables native assets. So as compared to your traditional bridges where you are getting a wrapped asset, which technically represents the value of the same asset that you sent, using Stargate Finance, you are getting the native asset. For example, if you have an asset called X on ETH, for example, let's say you have USDT on ETH, there's no need to get a wrapped USDT or WUSDT on the other end. Using Stargate Finance, if you send an asset X, you are getting that asset X, so meaning native asset, not the wrapped asset. So achieve this by something called Delta Bridge. It's basically the bridge, the Stargate Finance itself, and the Delta algorithm is something that's very interesting. In the image, what you see is on the left is your Stargate Finance liquidity pool. So if you don't know what liquidity pool is, so when you're trading on a decentralized exchange or using a decentralized dApp, there is a liquidity pool that holds the asset that you're trying to transact with. So on the left, this is the liquidity pool for USDT, and on the right, a liquidity pool for USDT on Uniswap. So on the left, as you can see, there's different sections within that liquidity pool as well. Until now, the liquidity pools are always the same asset or two assets in one pool. But what Stargate Finance has done is it has split the same liquidity pool into different sections depending on the blockchain that it is connected to. So example, earlier we tried to transfer USDT from ETH to Avalanche, let's say, right? In that case, what happens is Stargate Finance will take the USDT from ETH and it will transfer the liquidity to the Avalanche section. And why they do this is to have something called unified liquidity. What this means is to look at different AMMs or different DEXs. For example, SushiSwap, Uniswap, you have 1inch, or you have Orca, you have different DEXs, different dApps, right? And each and every dApp has their own liquidity. Now, one dApp might have more liquidity than the other dApp, and those protocols might be on different blockchains as well. So you can see that there's fragmentation on it. And at the moment, if I'm using a dApp on Solana, I'll be restricted to Solana ecosystem or anything that has been built for that ecosystem. But with Stargate Unified Liquidity, as long as that dApp incorporates Stargate or Layer 0, I can stay on one dApp and then tap into the liquidity of different apps and different AMMs, different DEXs that are on different blockchains. For example, I can stay on Uniswap and then I can sell, buy whatever assets on Solana or Orca for that matter. So I hope that was clear. If you didn't understand the idea of unified liquidity, please reach out to me on the comments or on Twitter at OneLifeInvestment, and hopefully I'll be able to explain it much better. And the final is native assets. You are not getting your wrapped asset like I mentioned before. And Stargate also enables composability. So what this basically means is I can create a dApp that speaks to multiple blockchains, and I can have a single transaction that actually comprises of multiple transactions within one. And within those multiple transactions, some transactions are on a different blockchain for that matter. For example, they explain it very nicely here. For example, suppose a SushiSwap user wanted to swap wrapped BTC on Ethereum for Joe on Avalanche. You can imagine what you need to do if you want to do this now. You need to swap your wrapped BTC for something else. You need to bridge that to Joe or Avalanche, and then you can swap that to Joe, and then you probably will have to swap that back to something else, and it's a mess. But imagine that you are in SushiSwap, you connect to Stargate Finance protocol, whatever, and then you click one button and you swap your wrapped BTC for Joe directly, and you get native asset Joe on SushiSwap. So that's what composability is. It's connecting that gap between two bridges and allowing developers to run programs that actually communicates and utilizes both the blockchains in that one transaction or in that dApp, right? There's a lot of information that I've probably missed out, but that's basically how the bridge works. Let's look into the tokenomics a little bit. So the tokenomics, it's not the best, but the only thing is that it's locked for 12 to 24 months, so there won't be any dilution straight away. But that's something definitely you got to keep in mind. So a team has 70%, 17.5% to investors. The protocol launch was 15%, bonding curve 15.9%, 15% out of that. I think almost all of them were taken or bought by Alameda Research, and we've got community 30.39%. 39%. So it's not too bad, right? So as you can see, this release schedule as well. As you can see that we won't have much dilution until 2023. So that's a good thing. But if you are thinking on long term, I would definitely keep that in mind, that Alameda holds almost all of the tokens that was meant to be for the public. Looking at Dune Analytics, the users, it's on a nice trend. The total users are increasing. Wallets with over 10 STG is 4,000. Wallets with more than 1 million STG, 18. So as you can see, this distribution is something that I'd be careful about. So I'm not sure. So let me know your thoughts. If you are in STG, what are your thoughts on it? What is your current experience and what are you looking forward to it? A 2.5 billion value locked up already. Now, what are my thoughts on it? I am very bullish on the idea or the protocol itself, not just Stargate Finance, but the protocol layer 0. Very excited. It has actually opened up the doors for DeFi 3.0, I would say, because now the developers can build a dApp that taps into or communicates with all the blockchains, and that opens that breaks down the barriers that we have at the moment with liquidity, having to onboard users, which is another nightmare, and people don't really understand the complex setup that we have on different blockchains and stuff like that. So this definitely enables that. This helps the retail, like a normal person, to download one app, and that app they can use that app to purchase almost anything on any blockchain, and they don't have to even bother which blockchain they are on. So that's pretty fascinating, and that is definitely a good news for anyone that is building on DeFi or building any dApp in crypto for general, because now they can build a hybrid dApp that can capture users from any blockchain, right? I hope that was helpful. If you have any suggestions or any project that you got excited, please let me know in the comments or reach out to me on Twitter at OneLifeInvestment. And if you made it to the end of the video, like, subscribe and hit the bell icon, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you and take care.